In this episode called Design for Real People, we'll discuss how building a new home, adding an addition, or renovating an existing space offer great pathways of personal discovery, choosing to incorporate the emotions that you want to experience most in your design, reality-centered living, and being a professional in your space requires that you own your authority and act courageously in moments of tension. Now, here are some things to ponder. Designing a new living space can be challenging. Who comes to mind for you that you know would be there for you to ensure that what you wanted most was at the heart of the design? What makes this person the right person for you? What qualities do they exhibit that have you trust them with this journey of transition? Do they pick up on both your analytical and emotional reasoning? Are they dedicated to what you want? Or do they seem more concerned about design trends? Welcome to Weekly Wins and Losses. My name is James Hepner, former real estate entrepreneur turned self-development hacker, coach, and fulfillment strategist. Each week, we bring you a thought to wrestle with that'll help you live fully alive and gain more life. Real life is made up of both wins and losses. Both were designed for your good. That's basic reality. Without facing and learning how to embrace your losses for greater gain, you miss out. You leave 50% of your life experience on the table. So with that, let's begin the show. Well, welcome friends. Today I have someone who is going to join us on the show. Her and I have much in common, and her name is Noel Chase. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really am so excited to be here. Your conversations are so rich and so meaningful. I'm just thrilled.
Lee, I've been waiting to talk with you because, like I shared with you in the pre-record here, to some degree, I can relate so much with your current world, and of course, listeners, I'll just cue you up. Lee is an artisan-architect. Now, I wasn't an architect, but I help people design their homes and their projects, and so I can relate with that. She pioneers a heart-centered approach to residential design, and this lady, she's got some experience, 25 years plus, creating, compelling, custom, high-end residential architecture. And your work, and others talk about this. You say this is what people say about your work, and it integrates that homeowners' emotional desires with their living spaces. Now that's pretty rich, and I think I relate with much and all of what you're doing already, but that one spot about that emotional desire piece. And so, listener, she lives outside of Boston with her school-age son. And by the way, who isn't going to school these days? So perhaps they're all school-age. And she's passionate, obviously, about architecture as the art of transformation. Now that's a mic drop. The art of transformation. There you go. So why don't we just cue up for the audience? Just if we could, let's start with a story. Let's start with a bang. Cue up a story where you were guiding people through an experience, designing a project, whether it was a renovation, a new build, I don't care. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, like these people transformed, and they were kind of like surprised that it happened, but very excited that it happened.
Oh, thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction. So everybody has or knows someone who has a nightmare story about something that went terribly wrong on a project. And so I'm going to tell you a story about a moment when things went really off the rails. I was working on a condo in Boston, beautiful view of the waterfront. Young man working in finance, very much wanting to impress his new soon-to-be fiance, and got a call from the builder. We spec'd out beautiful, hardwood floor finishes, clear, beautiful varnished floor, etc. I got a call from the builder. He was due to come in on Monday morning on an early flight from Europe. And the builder called me on Sunday and said, the floor refinishing, we used the wrong material.
Mhm.
And I get down to the job site, and I don't usually do a lot of this kind of construction administration, but I was in this case for this particular client. And somehow the young person doing the actual floor finishing had managed to go to a local place that was actually a ship's chandlery. He had gotten spar varnish, which is for boats, and he had refinished the entire floor in this place with spar varnish, which, if you don't know it, it's very tacky.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
this lovely woman whom he was engaged to wore like only stiletto heels. Like she was going to kill this floor in 3 seconds if she
Mhm.
walked into it. So we were really, really sunk. And, there was no time to redo it. This guy is showing up in the morning. His fiance is showing up in the afternoon. Like there's no possibility to fix it. And so I sat with it for a moment, and I said, you know what? We're just going to tell him what happened. We're actually going to tell
Mhm.
him that you have an assistant. He's not an English speaker. He went to the closest place to get materials, which happened because it's
Mhm.
Boston and the
Mhm.
waterfront to be a
Mhm.
ship's chandlery. And, and he got something that was meant for a boat. And we're just going to be honest.
Mhm.
So early the next day, I go in, the builder's there, and this man arrives, and he gets up to the threshold. We open the door, and I literally like kind of stand there, like almost making him hesitate. And he breathes in and he says,
Mhm.
"Oh, it smells like my grandfather's boat."
Oh.
It was unbelievable. Like you couldn't have written this, right?
Mhm.
And I look at the builder, and the builder is like almost in tears at this point, and he says,
Mhm.
"Look, here's what happened." And
Mhm.
and I say, and so the problem is this is expensive to redo. If
Mhm.
you want a polyurethane finish, it's expensive to redo. And in the meantime, no one in any kind of heels can walk on this. And he was like, "Ah, I love it. She's just gonna have to deal." And it was just this great moment of sort of accepting what is,
Mhm.
letting the story be honest and true, and kind of trusting that the universe was gonna show up with some new
Mhm.
information, which it did.
Mhm.
And so for me, one of the lessons in that was that people will tell you, "I only want this, I only want this, I only want this." But when they are confronted with something that has a real emotional memory for them or an
Mhm.
emotional trigger, they'll choose that every time. They'll choose
Mhm.
that every time over the thing that they think they want or they say they want. And so
Mhm.
my job then as a designer is to really get in and find those places of meaning, and then
Mhm.
draw those out in advance, and then offer those as part of
Mhm.
the finished product.
How did that, a great story. Thanks for sharing. I love it. Thank you so much. How did that story help you to leverage even more of a leaning into what might be or the uncertainty? Like, how did that
Yeah.
transform you? And how did that actually, in a subtle way and maybe even drastic way, transform the experiences that customers had with you from that point forward? I mean, I like to think, like you say, this wasn't just a moment that they got to experience. It was, we can all hear
Yeah.
what you care about. What you care about is, oh my goodness, here we thought it was a mistake. But instead of us getting in the weeds on why it was a mistake and that we're all looking for fault finding, why don't we just let unfold what is here?
Mhm.
And honestly, the good news is reality. The senses pick up the smell, and it's like, oh my goodness, let me just take a step back. One, like we didn't do, you right? So how did
Yeah.
it shape
Yeah.
shape you and maybe your
Uh,
clients' experiences from that point
well,
forward?
one thing that it definitely, I'm a I'm a person who like can't lie to save my life. I'm a terrible liar, and so um, I felt relieved that my
Mm,
strength, which is just in laying things out, was actually okay in that moment,
mm,
and helpful. But I think also it it tipped me, that moment in particular tipped me over from letting those moments happen to
Mm,
actively seeking them out. And so now I ask
mm,
people early in the design process, are there certain building materials, visual cues, sense of, the way a place
mm,
smells. For me, at my family had a cabin in Michigan that was built by Swedish log cabin builders, and it smelled like creosote when I was a kid.
mm,
That's a
mhm,
smell that will always have some
mm.
kind of grist for me. Not that we use that material anymore. It is not a green material. Note
Mm,
to everybody, but I think that if I can actively
mm,
engage with people on that level of their sort of deepest resonances and experiences, then I can serve them better, because I can say, hey, that cedar lined whatever, like we can do a whole closet like that, we can do a whole bathroom like that, and that's a wonderful smell to have
mm,
around you. I think when we so in and then in further in seeking that out, it let me talk to clients in a
mm,
way that helps them become more aware of themselves.
mm, mm.
So now not only am I trying to get to know them, but maybe they're getting to know themselves in the same moment,
Uh,
which is so much
uh,
fun, because then
mm,
you took all of that discovery, which isn't just, do I like this color or that color? Do I like this bathroom or that bathroom? Do I want a big house or a little house? Now you just took that and like really brought it to a level
mm.
of meaning and loveliness that is just so rich. And so now I look at design as a process of continually discovering who that person is.
I love that. I remember, oh, what is this? Probably 15, 17 years ago, or maybe even be closer to 20. Yeah, actually 20, when I was in the throes of what you're talking about, feeling like we erred so deeply. And then all of a sudden realizing, the only way I can be about this is you just got to look at it for what it is. And I don't need to be afraid that other people can't handle it. Like if I feel like I can't handle it, that's one thing, but I got to bring peace into myself. And then with that peace, go like, you know what? Other people have capacity to handle pretty intense things. We choose professions, but then we realize maybe professions chose us, because
Mhm.
there's this play where how can work not just be um worshiping the god of production, like that I'm just
That's right.
producing, right? And so how
That's
can it
right.
also bring some living beyond just production or entertainment? Like how can it be beyond that? And I remember
Right.
for me, it's this glorious moment. It's glorious. I thought I was designing homes, and we were, as a company, we built custom ready to move homes. We shipped them all
Mhm.
over Canada, United States, in different northern states. And it
So
was a
cool.
really fun play. And of course, after you do about 30 or 40 of these, it begins to be like, okay, there's these metrics, are the boxes checked? And though you're taking people through a journey, and everything we did was to engage the client emotionally. We had everything done, the whole design, in 2.5 days. And we kind of
Wow.
gave them, and I had gone to a Tony Robbins experience. And
Nice.
so we took him through all the emotions and extreme things. Like I'll never forget this one client, her back just started really aching on one of the days. And I think she was emotionally going through so much, her back went out. And so we aligned her with
Oh,
a chiropractor. And these people at the end of their experience are like, wow, we did what? And we're like, we feel like what it takes most people a couple of months, we did in these 2 days, but it feels so synergistic. It feels so in flow. It felt so nice. We can't believe it. And no, it wasn't that stressful, but we did everything pristine and nothing was rushed. And the emotions were, all we did is we attended to the emotions. That's really what we
right.
attended to emotions with pristineness, and we
Yep.
brought them up. And then when they felt down, we just let them feel down a little bit. And after it was like 30 houses, thinking to myself, yeah, this is fun, but it's like, it's not quite like the sparkle, and the gasp isn't quite as rich for me as it once was.
Yeah.
Though I'm with them, but it's like, okay. But then when the first big mistake happened, like for you,
Hmm.
mistake, let's just make room for something else.
Hmm.
There's something else that comes is they're going, oh, and whether they were all like brilliantly surprised isn't the point. The point is that I got to just stand with reality and the reactions They got to observe their reactions, and then I could reflect back to them that they could handle it, whichever way it was, whether it was like
Yeah.
beautifully crying or beautifully
Yeah.
laughing, whatever it ended up being. And then we got to be the safety net and to take them from that moment to where they wanted to go. So we let every
Right.
emotion build us towards the next thing.
That's
And
so
we,
interesting.
right.
Yeah. 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 Yep.
And so what was so weird actually is I'll never forget. So this is the whole play and what I'm trying to suggest here.
Yeah.
I remember the gasp in each moment. Whenever these things happened, there was a gasp, and it was either a gasp of, I can't believe this is happening to us, or let's gasp and let's just breathe, honey. This is like better than we thought, or like, oh, that window, I know we said we wanted it there, but could we move it 3 inches over because the chair that our grandma just gave us because she died has moved. You know what I mean? This
Yeah.
we want. And all I remember is this. I started observing what people did when there was a gasp.
Mhm.
So the question is, how do we strengthen both our mind and body effectively? Maybe I should add, why is strengthening our mind and body even something that we might want to seriously consider implementing on a daily basis? It's all about maximizing your opportunities, maximizing your ability to experience a rich life instead of a mediocre life, maximizing your ability to bring to yourself and others around you what you were set on this earth to deliver and enjoy. What's not to love about stretching yourself and experiencing the truth about the incredible capacity that you actually have? Listen, I really value you, and I want to help you maximize your life by sharing a few of the specific strategies that have made all the difference in my life. I want you to feel mentally and physically strong so you'll be well prepared when you're most needed, so that your mind and body will be entrained to know exactly what to do when others are running for the exit signs, and so that you'll activate your ability to easily identify the opportunity no matter how challenging the situation. So, I've carefully put together a well-curated resource that will make it super easy for you. Simply go to www.jameshepner.com/self-help hacker, where you will be able to see some of my favorite books and specific biohacking modalities, supplements, and biohacking experiences that will allow you to feed your mind and body the specific and exact ingredients that will give you the mental and physical edge. Now, I should note, you'll see listed a grouping of biohacking experiences like whole body cryotherapy, bone density, etc., that you can experience at our biohacking lab located on the west coast of Canada in White Rock, BC. If you live nearby, feel free to book your session as you wish. Also, you'll want to take note of the specific discount code section that allows you to purchase products from my favorite vendors anywhere from 10 to 25% off by simply using the discount code JAMES. I hope you enjoy. To your life force, to your strength, here we go. Is I'll never forget. So this is the whole play and what I'm trying to suggest here.
Yeah.
I remember the gasp in each moment. Whenever these things happened, there was a gasp, and it was either a gasp of, I can't believe this is happening to us, or let's gasp and let's just breathe, honey. This is like better than we thought, or like, oh, that window, I know we said we wanted it there, but could we move it 3 inches over because the chair that our grandma just gave us because she died has moved. You know what I mean? This we want. And all I remember is this. I started observing what people did when there was a gasp.
Mhm.
And then I started leaning into what happens to me when there's a gasp of, I'm like, we all want surprise, but I think what's beautiful is when we get to experience surprise with the other person, and we get to collectively enjoy. So they were designing their house, and though I'd done this 30, 40, 50 times, I was beginning, the more I left room to be energetically enticed to these moments.
Yeah.
And welcoming these moments, I began to enjoy it and enjoy the gasp with them, as they were the ones that were the clients, but I got to experience it from a whole new level. And all of a sudden my work took on, this feels like the first new home. Every experience, every new home, every new client felt like a brand new experience. And it wasn't just like I was performing some work that I could monetarily bless myself with.
That's right.
I
I
was
have,
in the gasp
yeah,
with them, and it felt so
absolutely.
incredible. It's like, holy smokes,
Yeah.
this is incredible. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because you're always standing on the edge of that moment of discovery, right? And then you've put yourself in that child mind of, I am going to see everything for the first
Mhm,
time. I am going to take it in its whole entirety. Like,
mhm,
absolutely.
mhm.
I feel like there is, um, a there there's so many things I want to respond to. So
Please
first of
just
all,
go, because
yes.
I know I tickle the edges, which, by the way, listeners, I want to share something with you before you, if you don't mind. I'm just going to like just
No,
hold your
no.
thought half a second. If
Yeah,
you don't mind.
not
This
at
is
all.
how this lady approaches me for a podcast record. I normally don't do this, but it was just spectacular. This is these are her final words. If you want to talk with a guest who's passionate, speaks softly and beautifully, and is super tickled to be talking with you, then message me. I'm like, oh Lord, I got to connect to this one. This is a good one.
Well, the thing is, I am so intent on
Mm,
letting architectural design evolve
mm,
around residential architecture to
mm,
a point where it is a process of personal discovery. I
mm,
think we have, for maybe since the beginning of architecture, but certainly for a long time, we have practiced residential design as though it was only an analytical and commercial venture. And we missed the thing
mm,
that realtors and interior designers and all kinds of other people know, which is that people's homes matter so much. They are the heart and hearth. There is a reason those words are one letter different. They are, our homes are the center of meaning in our lives in so many different ways. And in fact, one of the things that I'm particularly passionate about is first generation home ownership.
mm,
We have a huge, one of the many equity disparities that we have is
mm,
around generational home ownership. And in the US right now, one of the populations that is growing the most, did you know this, that Latinx, Latino and Latina people are diving into that home ownership,
mm,
just hand over fist. It's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. And they are not hiring architects. The one person they really could use to help them with renovations and additions, and even just bringing housing stock
mm,
like up to standards, they are not going to,
mm,
because architecture is, it ignores the
mhm,
basic realities of being first generation homeowners, or being Latino, and then wanting
mhm,
to access is still predominantly white, still predominantly
mhm,
male, industry. And so it's like there's this huge disconnect. And once I saw how great that gulf was, I
mhm,
really wanted to reach
mhm,
across it. I really wanted to say, look, there must be a way to take this analytical pursuit and practice it with an awareness of the emotional realities side by side. We've got to be able to work both halves of the brain at the same time.
mhm,
Now, designers will often tell you
mhm,
that their moments of greatest creativity are when they were able to go back and forth between left brain, right brain,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm,
So it's not that it can't be done; it's that we don't do it because we're not trained to, and the
mhm,
expectation isn't set. So I set a different expectation for myself. I said, look, I am going to practice this
mhm,
in the way that I
mhm,
practice parenting, which is
mhm,
very much from the head and the heart, right?
mhm, mhm,
And so, and once I looked at it that way, then there were all of these other follow-on effects. I see a lot of architects
mhm,
when they do residential, they will have a questionnaire, and they'll
mhm,
say, well, do you like this or do you like this? Do you want this or do you want this? What's your major goal with this renovation? And I resist those because I think they cannot, it's like, it's like an intake form for somebody who's going through a major depression. It's like, that's just never really going to cover it. You need to sit down
mhm,
and talk with that person and really listen and really tune into what they're
Mm,
experiencing. And then you can start to talk about what the possibilities are. And then you can tee up a
mm,
path forward for this transformation. But the whole idea that you're going to be able
mm,
to do that without that moment of discovery, without that
mm,
aha moment, is just seems crazy to me now. Like
mhm,
I haven't done it
mhm,
that way for so long. I'm just like,
mhm,
why would you even? Um, there's another sort of aspect of this, which is that we we mix um,
mm,
when we're looking at any of these things where it's a high ticket item, well, homes, and whether you're renting or owning or whatever, like
mm,
the cost of real estate and living spaces in our lives is significant. It's usually 1/3 to 2/3 of people's whatever they earn in their lifetime, right?
mhm,
And so when we treat it like it's just a money problem and just a logic
mm,
problem,
mm,
we excise, we leave out this whole chunk that is really the place where the opportunity for it to be
mm,
really wonderful sits.
mm,
So there's a discomfort in marrying this logical financial engineering problem with
mm,
some of
mhm.
the meaning and emotional realities. Like it's uncomfortable for those two. Have you ever been at like the Thanksgiving table and the engineer is sitting next to the psychologist? And it's just like, oh boy, how's this going to go?
Mm,
Like it's uncomfortable to make those two
mm,
meet.
mhm,
And so what you need is you need a you or a me to mediate.
mm,
You need
mhm,
someone who can sit right on that uncomfortable spot in the middle and say, I've got you. I've
mm,
got you in your engineering
mm,
problems.
mhm,
I've got you in your emotional reality. It's going to be okay. Just tell me, just talk to me, and we're gonna
mhm,
walk through this together.
mm,
In moments of transition, I have found when they relate to homes and residential design and architecture, in moments of transition, we just need someone to walk the path
mm,
with us and really be with. And
mm,
it's hard to do that. And again, you get zero training in
mm,
design school for doing that. Like
mhm,
there's no
mm,
precedent for it at all. But I've
mhm,
found that when I can do that and do it well, I get super happy clients. I get a smooth and efficient design process. I know I have no changes. There are no change orders later. It's all like, yep, we know what we're doing because
mm,
we know the purpose. We know the process was thorough. We know why we made these decisions. That window is where it
mhm.
is because we knew that chair was going to be somewhere in the vicinity. We've got that, like you just you have to you have to be a little brave and be willing to kind of sit on that sore spot with someone and really witness to their transformation.
That's so interesting. And I love what you're bringing up. I remember when clients came to see us, I remember often thinking and feeling that what they were doing when they'd show up, just touching base with what was happening in their world, I could just pick up on these nuance, right? You're just leaning
Yeah.
into how they're showing up, like ladies holding on to her shirt a little tighter or something, and she's bracing herself for
Yeah.
this next stage of life. It's a big deal. Like you say, a third or 2/3 of people's disposable income, or perhaps like lifetime income. And I didn't know that the fact, or that was 2/3, but that's fairly intense. But they would stand there and they were really excited, but almost you could see there was this nervous, anxious excitement. And
Yeah.
what's
And you know
interesting,
what they're most worried about when it's families? The couple is most worried about their coupleship because there are
100%,
so many
100%.
stories of people of having construction and design projects be divisive, and the thing they're most worried about is their marriage.
So you brought something else up, which I'll touch on later if we have some time. But so here they are, they show up. And of course, what do you do before you show up? You look through magazine, you look through catalog, you look through internet, and what you're thinking is you're going, the analytical side is, well, what would be the right thing to do? And what I remember thinking is they're coming for something, and what they're coming for is let's do it proper. And there was nerves there. And I always remember realizing
Yeah.
that what they're coming for is not really what they're going to get, but really what they're ultimately coming for is what I'm going to provide for them. And
Yeah.
that's an integration
Yeah.
of, if I think about it, designing new living spaces where they can lean into the ancestral, like who doesn't want to bring, we're silly if we don't want to bring a bit of the past into our world. Like my grandma did this, or here's my grandma's piano, and I like to put it here. So you're trying to bring your ancestral, the wisdom into your home, but you're designing a new space that's going to integrate your own authority and difference within this space. So it's a hodgepodge of things. So I remember people being like, it's where the window goes, it's where this and this. And I'm going, yes. And what was interesting to your play. So of course, when I started, I was the business. So I did everything. I was there to help people when the architect was sitting across from them. I was there helping them do product selection. I was there helping them I did everything basically. But the one position that I never gave up is a precious one for me. And that was when they first arrived and we went to the designer's office. So the architect, and we sat between the designer, and then there's a desk. And then we sat, shouldn't say between, we sat on the other side of his desk, and he would ask them questions that would activate their analytical brain, because that's what he's like, an engineer. And what happened is my clients would give answer, and I could tell they're giving answer from a place of going, yeah, we know he would ask us these things. So this is, we're prepared.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is I remember going, I kind of know what he's doing, but I'm seeing there's a gap here. And I wonder what it is. And I just started playing with it. And I realized what they needed is they needed some life to be brought into it, some emotion. And I'd be like, you know what? How do you actually feel about what Bruce is saying? Bruce is the designer. How do you actually feel? And I remember the first time Bruce looked up and he was like this. And I said, Bruce, I love you to bits, brother. Don't worry. You and I are good. I'm just asking, what do you actually feel about that? And then they'd be like, well, and then I said, well, honestly, this is how I feel what's happening here. I feel like it's really nice. The only thing is, and then I cracked a joke and they started laughing and started just modeling forward. And so you bring emotion into it. And the interesting thing, it took a full year for Bruce to speak up to me after the designs. He says, James, I have to tell you one thing. In the beginning, we first started designing, and I didn't try to push him off or say that you're not doing correct things. I just kind of used him and I to like play off, and then they got comfortable and they started joining in, and it was like, it took me a while to get comfortable. But he goes, I'll have to give you something. I never thought that we could facilitate doing the whole design and selecting, doing whatever you're deciding to do, and having clients have everything feel so comfortable. He goes, I actually saw people come back into my office just before they left, which means they already had the design, or at least a sketch of, and they'd chosen everything. And he goes, the amount of trust and just lightness that he goes, I've never seen that in my life. And he goes, how do you do this? And I just said, Bruce, if I think about what you and I do, this is what I do. And he says to me, you know what, James, honestly speaking, just keep doing what you're doing, because it's incredible. And so this is not pointing at me. I'm not trying to say I did incredible. What I'm trying to say is we can all do. So listeners, we all have a desire to say, if we design our new homes, whatever they are, a new car, a different bike, a different place in the street to sleep, which, by the way, I want to hear a little bit later. You used to be homeless once, right? So you have an appreciation for homes because you know what it's like not to have a home. But I want you to think about this. When you design a new living space, listeners, just tap into this. Who are you designing the home for? If you're designing it for you, wouldn't you say that what you're trying to experience are some emotions that make you tick in life? Really, what you want isn't that the organ is placed exactly here or what. You're trying to generate a feeling, the heart and the hearth. It's a feeling. And so if you stay in your logical brain, you'll likely design a home that's going to be appealing to other people. But who lives in your home? You live in your home. And so what you're looking for likely is you're looking for someone, like you say, someone who can be an intermediate, somebody who can be the liaison between these two, someone who can be courageous enough to be like, I know the logic and the analytical is good. It's not in spite of, it's because we get to engage in both.
That's right.
We need to ensure that happens, because if you don't, you will live in a home, or let's just back it up. While the house is being built, you're going to be calling in change orders all the time if it's simply just analytical, because the analyticals didn't connect with the emotion. And that's what makes you doubt it to a place of you can't follow through with it.
That's right. This is what I think it makes construction and design and custom design so difficult for so many people is that they don't hone in on what they really want at the outset. They say, look, I want a big, beautiful home. This is it. Go do the thing. And they cannot, they don't begin by being vulnerable, being real, having some self-discovery. And then later, when it inevitably happens, because it's going to happen, you're going to look at something and be like, that fits or it doesn't. I would rather make those mistakes on paper. It's expensive to make them later. And so then you get, the endless projects where it just has gone on so long because there are so many changes, because nobody looked at the emotional reality at the very beginning. Nobody said, oh, I know it sounds kind of weird. I am not someone who loves a lot of light first thing in the morning. Most men actually don't. Many men, let me say this differently. Many men, like the whole man cave thing is no joke. Many men do not like first light. Many women will tend towards that early, bright morning sunlight, right? If you don't know that about yourself, whether you are or are not an early day light person, you're going to have rooms in the wrong places in your house. You're going to, I had a woman the other day come to me. She's like, I have had my office in 6 different rooms. She's working from home now. She's like, I have had my office in 6 different rooms in this house, and I was like, yeah, well, what quality of light do you like? And she looked at me and she was like, no one's asked me that. I was like, well, let's start there. Let's start by getting to know you. And again, sometimes that means you need to get to know you. One of the things I find with, I deal with a lot of different types of couples, and when people are busy professionals, they've got busy lives, their time is valuable, and they really want to streamline a process. They will try to make it as clear as possible. And there is a moment where when I can, with the clients that are a real fit for me, I say, look, the best way we can get efficiency in this process is for us to start with this little bit of vulnerability. That's the best way, in fact, for us to streamline the rest of the process. And some people buy it and some people don't. People want to go to an architect to get a job done, and they don't particularly want to go to an architect to have their head shrunk. So I worked with a couple. Can I tell another story?
Yeah. No, stories are most allowed. I don't know if I have allowed or not allowed. So please share stories. I love it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, they resonate deepest. Yeah.
I worked for an extremely high-end home builder, doing these, multi-million-dollar homes, big, beautiful places, brand name architects, all, the whole 9 yards. I was a project manager. I was working with a small woodworking division of this company, and we had a client who a couple. And there was tension on a project because this was actually another refinishing problem that came up, and something was not right. So there was a piece that everybody agreed had been done incorrectly. And I was very much at this time the younger member of this team, and I was also the only woman, and it just wasn't really a situation where I felt like I could really, speak up a whole lot. But the couple came in, the heads of the company were there, the project managers and lead carpenters, everybody was, really part of this, very serious conversation about the many thousands of dollars it was going to take to correct this problem. And I noticed, I watched while this woman just got more and more agitated. And there were 2 things I noticed. One was that everybody was looking at the history of the problem, and no one was just sitting down with her and saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Right.
What a drag.
Right.
Shoot, things happen, but I'm just sorry, and at some point she really started to lose her stuff. She started becoming just bizarre and aggressive with her husband. And she was like, crazy things were starting to happen in this meeting. And I just, I had a moment of insight, I guess. And I said, okay, everybody out, just girls in the room. Just all the men need to leave. And I talked with her for over 20 minutes, just the two of us. And I said, tell me what you're feeling. What are you really worried about? Tell me, I know this is difficult, but tell me more. And I just kept on saying, tell me more. Tell me more. I am here. I am listening. Tell me more. And as it turned out, she wasn't worried about the thing that had gone wrong, but her husband, who was, this fabulously wealthy and very busy man, was away a lot, earning the money to have this incredible home. And she was now watching some of her precious hours with him while he was home go to solving this problem. And I said, oh, so if we just tell you we can solve this problem without him getting involved, she was like, that's all I want. I was like, great. So I pulled everybody else back into the room and I said, here's what we need to do. We need to go and solve this because we know how to solve it. And we need to not take any more time from their family time, which is really beautiful, really precious.
Yep.
And it was like magic. The project managers were happy. The clients were happy. Everybody was like, great, cool, bye. I was like, we can do it. And then it was like a short negotiation. How is it going to get fixed? And I said, the only rule here is I looked at the husband. I said, you are not allowed to manage us for this. We've got this. It was a mistake. It's going to get fixed. We'll keep you, posted, but don't let it take any more time from your coupleship. And that was it, And I think if you can, again, when people can be real and a little bit vulnerable about what's really on their minds, you can do amazing things and you can offer them services beyond their dreams. You can really give them things that they never thought would be possible. So anyhow.
Yeah. Gosh, you know what? Great story. Listeners, just tap into moments in your life when you realize that something is being asked of you in the moment and you realize somebody has to bring it. And if you find yourself spinning and you're not going anywhere and you're noticing someone has to bring it, maybe it's you. Ask yourself, what manner of authority do I need to claim? In this moment, we're listening to, Lee Noel as a female in a primarily masculine dominated field, contractors, different people. And then she's got a client who's got money on the brain. Listen, the masculine presence brings things home typically. The masculine presence brings things in. The feminine presence creates something. He's trying to do his role, which is beautiful in the meeting, and she's trying to do her role, which is beautiful. And so ask yourself when you realize something is required, and listeners, what you focus on in life. You know your expertise. You know what you pride yourself in. This is what you lay into. This is what you show up as in the world. When there's moments that you realize somebody needs to show up and you realize you're looking around, who could it be? Maybe it's you. It's probably you. And maybe you want to do what Lee Noel did, and that is go for something that you've maybe never chosen to tap into, which is a new level of courage. Self-respect we all want it. It's where confidence comes from.
Oh my gosh, it's so much in what you're saying right now. I have to tell you, when I first became clear about practicing architecture from a point of view that took into account emotion, I spoke with someone who actually had been a mentor. And I let him know, I was like, you know what, I'm really doing this thing, and it's fantastic. It works really well. And he literally told me, you are ruining the field of architecture. And this was someone I respected, someone who was
Mhm.
older, more experienced than me,
Mm.
and all I remember thinking in that moment was like, I, I remember just having, and thank goodness it was this and not like endless days of insecurity, which it also could have been. Um, I had this moment where I thought, he's really threatened by what I'm doing. I must be on to something. And I would say just, if you are doing something and it's so different that people get itchy around it, it is possible that you are on the right track.
It is I love that intensely. When you say threatened, so fascinating. And not just the masculine presence, the feminine likewise can feel deeply threatened. I would say, and maybe just, I observe the unhealthy side of the patriarchy. Now there's healthy sides of it and unhealthy
Totally,
sides.
totally,
But
totally.
I
Yeah.
look at how many people who profess to be deeply masculine, how they flinch at the slightest of threat. When we consider what presence actually is, presence isn't just physical. Unless you're emotionally present, the body, the corpse, unless you have emotion, you are laying in a coffin if you're physically present. Yeah, you're present, but unless there's emotion, you're dead.
Yeah.
And so the insecurity shows so deeply. They're trying to cover it up by fighting and fighting and fighting all the things that they know are richly interior and come from a feminine spirit, which we all have, which is everything is created and designed and comes from the interior of our life. And the interior of our life is where the emotion is. Typically, the feminine spirit, which masculine presence also has, if they allow it, the interior leads the external. You see, what's so fascinating is I think when we connect with our empathy,
Yeah.
masculine presence isn't wrong for trying to bring, it's not a matter of right or wrong, good or bad. The masculine presence is trying to bring things in and often gets stuck on, like you say, facts or debating history. And what we're all looking for is, in my opinion, so men, I'm just going to tap into men, masculine men who show up primarily in that state. Why is it, men, that we lean to our women and then learn to rely on them to show up with the emotion that we resent, but it's the very thing that always loosens our grip from the unhelpful side of suffering?
So
Why is
it's
it not that instead of us, why can't we? So the point is, so this has been my life journey,
yeah,
where
yeah.
I said, I'm not going to hold my wife hostage to say she needs to do this for me. I'm going to activate this from within so that the inner side, instead of her having to do this and me resenting that she can do it. Because typically when we first meet the woman, we're like, oh, we love this. We love this. We love this about her. All of us who end up resenting, you want to know why? Because we don't the fuck do it ourselves.
But it's
That's
so
the
typical.
bullshit of our life.
It's so typical though of any area of our lives where we're trying to find balance, right? There's always going to need to be both this beautiful polarity between masculine and feminine. And by the way, for me, I have some amazingly intuitive, sensitive trans friends who are just incredible at this. So
Right?
I like masculine and feminine because it's not so it's the biology of gender can be set to the side,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I also would just say that we're always in that polarity. We're always looking for balance. And I like to think that I was not ruining the field of architecture. What I was doing
I would
was
agree.
opening it up.
You found a way to utilize your strength as a feminine presence who also understands the masculine clearly, because you
Yeah.
didn't sort and say, men, you're not needed here. You're saying
No, no.
there's so much of what's here is of the masculine. Let's just also allow and bring the feminine into this experience, and then let's integrate these two. And when you did this, he's like, this is what actually I want in my marriage all the time, and you facilitated it in the home design. So their
Yeah,
home is actually, or that design is actually infused with that newness. So who
that's
knows
right.
where they went? And so you transform, perhaps, right?
Yeah. So it's so interesting because the moment at which I decided that I had to do something different, my son, who is now 16, was probably 2.5 or 3. And I remember holding him. I think he, just one of those times when he just needed to be held for a long, long time. I can't remember, tired, sick, who knows, toddlers are a big deal, but I remember thinking, if I can't bring this level of connection to what I'm doing in whatever I do in my work life, I'm going to do it in a diminished capacity. I have to be able to bring who I am as a mother to my profession. Otherwise I will be half a person. And I'm not willing to be half a person. I'm not willing to be half a person at home, and I'm not willing to be half a person at work. I want to bring all of who I am to the table because it's all of value. And so that was, you're so right. You're so perceptive to know that it is about balancing masculine and feminine in the way that we've polarized those things in
what's
in
most needed
in
now. What's most
yeah.
needed now.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. And if
and
you
the
make
one thing we know,
space,
sorry, go ahead.
if you make space in the right times in the design process for discovery and feeling, and then let that masculine take over sort of through design development and construction documents, like let it take, like if you let them both sit in the right moments in the design process, you can have extraordinary things happen. You really can. It's pretty fantastic. Sometimes it changes the form of the house a lot. Sometimes it changes it a little, but what it changes dramatically is the investment of your clients, how everybody is on the same page when there are problems. You solve all of those things that can come up as conflict later are tremendously eased. I know that I have fewer change orders because we know what we're doing. We've got a standard, we've agreed on it. It's got emotional reality to it where everybody's on board. But I think that putting that all together in a way that feeds and supports, it may not change the external form dramatically, but it changes the result in the process, and the buy-in and the ease tremendously.
A few things. Firstly, thank you for showing up. And in the moment when the gentleman and the lady were in the room and they're at a stalemate, you could see what was needed. Thank you for showing up and matching masculine energy with masculine energy. Beautiful. That's what he needed. That supported him. That loved him best. Then you created this moment where you got to connect. So thank you immensely for that. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for strong individuals. That's what we're looking for. What does this individual need now? So unless we attend to that, it's going to be a shit show. It's just not going to look good.
It's really true.
It's not going to look good for yourself to observe. Now, for others to observe as well, but you're not going to create deep connection. And again, there's nothing wrong with correction, but unless you find how everything can circle around connection, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And in fact, what I find, again, working with a lot of couples, is that a man will come to that first meeting trying really hard to be in his feeling side and say, well, what would you like? How do you, what would you like? Right. And a woman will come to that first meeting trying very hard to be in her masculine side saying, well, I really want to take care of the budget here. I really want to make sure that we're looking at the numbers. And because out of the goodness of their hearts, each person is trying to do what they think the other person wants them to, instead of living in their truth and saying, I really want to feel like our family time is supported by this house. I don't know how we get there design wise, but I know we need more and higher quality together time. How do we get there? And then I can come up with the design strategies that help that happen. But it is so sweet. I see. And I often have to say to couples, it's okay. You don't have to be so nice. Tell me, tell me how you are. Don't try to anticipate what that other person wants. Like, start with what's real for you. We will get to the place where you can be generous. I promise. But if we start flipping roles from the get-go, it's an instant tangle. And then I can never know what the truth is. I've got to find that.
Well, you're clearly a professional. When you talk ease, the one thing we're all picking up is you do not shield them from reality. And so it's like you are there with them while they experience things like discomfort. So you're
Yeah,
the one that says, I'm relaxed while discomfort happens. And you know, this is
that's
what
right. That's
we
right.
the clients observe this and they're like, well,
Yeah,
if you can be at ease, you're clearly invested in us. Like that's key number one we're hearing. You're so deeply invested with them. So they feel deep
yeah,
connection and you become like an extension of them. And when they observe that you're at ease when something happens that's a little untoward or unexpected, and they realize, wait a minute, you're experiencing what they're experiencing. It's
yeah,
like, wow. And of
yeah.
course, the ease of absorbing discomfort, like that's an art. And we each have a specific field of
It
reference that we focus on. So there you go. Yeah.
it is the nature of resilience, is
Right.
being able to share uh resourcefulness, that ease, and staying in a resourceful state in the middle of conflict. That is the essence of resourcefulness. And if you can create resourcefulness in your
Mhm.
clients, you can go, that's the
Beautiful.
quantum leap. That's the quantum leap. That
Beautiful.
there it is.
And
That's
gosh,
it.
and I love it. That was a beautiful. Think about this, right? I'm contemplating. I think life can be so beautiful
Yeah.
when each one of us taps into the very thing that lights us up. So I'm not a car mechanic. I need a moment when somebody sees that I'm afraid of my fear, that I don't have the capacity to hold what's going on. I need
Yeah.
somebody to spot that. And you know who can spot that? That professional.
Yeah.
If we all facilitate this for other people,
That's right.
it's like the
That's right.
peace and joy that we crave. I need to focus on bringing it wherever I go. And if we
That's
all
right.
do this and we
Yeah.
especially apply it to the specific professions that we have, think about how lovely this
Yeah.
experience is. So what I like to do now, Lee Noel,
Yes.
is I like to pivot towards and this is like a bit of a popcorn round.
Okay.
They'll
Yeah.
ask questions, and I just call it like the nurturing power round.
Okay.
So
Cool.
it's not just power through. It's like, no, the nurturing power round. Like really go in and really feel it and just be with it and experience it and say what comes to heart. But
Okay.
please take like a minute, max of two, and just say what comes to heart and floats to the surface view. What's at
Mm.
the undertow of everything in that area? So the first question is, what's the gift of homelessness that has served you so intensely?
Mm.
How has
Mm.
it created the very ethos and perhaps, yeah, what's
Yeah.
the gift of homelessness? What did it teach you? And how can you be so grateful? Not in
Yeah.
spite of, but because of.
Yeah. Um, it, oh. So I had nowhere to live when I was going through a divorce and I had a baby.
Hmm.
So I was essentially a single mother with a little one, a little one. And for a variety of reasons, I spent about, I think it was about 6 months without any place to call home. And one, oh, there's so many pieces of it. I think so. So I'm going to start with the shallow one first. The shallow one is that even in even even from the front seat of my car, I could still use good design principles around solar orientation and wind flow and uh, the organization of space. There are universal design principles, and they are really universal. And I know
Hmm.
that because they will apply whether you are living in a tent
Hmm.
or living in a mansion. And
Hmm.
so that's one thing, is that I think my belief in architecture and architectural design was tested by those by the experience of not having any single place to call my own.
That you could do it,
And
that you could do it anywhere and
you
everywhere.
can do
So
it
it was like, wait a
anywhere.
minute. So
Yeah.
this must be okay and good if I can do it anywhere. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And so so that's one part of it. The other is that it made me look beyond the walls. I was able during that time to create um, a fairly stable existence for myself and my son. And we didn't have a house structure, but we had a time structure throughout the day. And so I guess
Hmm.
I started to look at structure I deeper than the walls. It's not skin deep. It's the experience of the space. It's not the box. It made me look beyond the box.
It's fantastic. The stability of resourcefulness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next
Yeah.
one. We all have places in our life where we think something is a good idea, and then we recontemplate and we're like, yeah, that is. So it's not ugly. It's not bad. It's just that idea served me so that I can have this next idea. And often what I find in my life is I throw away good ideas, not because I don't enjoy them. It's just like, yeah, I was there, so I can now be here. And often the from there to here is like, I enjoyed this, but how can I make this bigger? So I include the greater whole. What kind of good ideas have you thrown away? And actually, again, for a minute, max of two,
Okay.
what's one or two good idea that you chose to put aside or just throw away? Actually, you realize later you let it go totally. And you're so thankful you did that, because maybe there was some discomfort in sitting in the liminal space of, yeah, but that would have been okay, right? But then when you stayed with it, something amazing happened. And it was a great idea that came that just shattered you. Like, it is beautiful, shattered you into beautiful, like beautiful pieces where you went to the next level of your life.
Yeah. So I hope this will answer your question. I am one of the people who got really lucky during the pandemic, and my business grew 5x. And I want to tell you sort of how and why that happened. And the short answer, I will skip to the end and tell you the short answer is it happened because I decided it was going to happen. And so the real question is like, how did that make a difference? And I realized that for many years, I had been putting limits on myself that I did not need to accept. And I didn't realize that until I got appendicitis. I got appendicitis, and I was literally lying on a hospital bed full of a bunch of drugs, getting ready for surgery. And I was madly handing off my work to someone who had been my assistant before and he's a great drafter. And I was just saying, oh my gosh, okay, here, can you call this client? Can you do this? Here, I just said, here are my passwords to all of my files. Here's all of it. I am going to be out of commission. I don't know if you know appendicitis, but you do feel like you're going to die. You really feel like you are not going to make it. Your body is toxic. It's really bad. And so I just said, here's everything. Please go do the right thing. I had to trust someone else with my very personal work material, which was very hard to do. And I remember just before going into surgery, getting a call back from this person who was saying, Lee, Noel, how are you doing like the work of 10 men? There's like enough work in here for like 5 people. Like, what are you doing? And by the way, I'm going to hire you another drafter. We're going to get some admin. We got to get you set up with a better accounting system. Like all of these things that I had been waiting, not doing. I had it all in a box and locked away. And I just remember waking up from surgery and thinking 2 things, like, thank God I am going to see my son. Just fuck it. I'm going to go see what I can do. I am going to see what I am capable of.
That's so powerful. So it's like I said earlier, expectations are pre-planned resentments. It's like, you know what? Fuck the expectations. It's
that's
like,
exactly it.
Yeah. Fuck the expectations.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
Happened.
I have to connect. I have to appreciate what's here now.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. And it was literally just this. I mean, again, it might have been the drugs. It certainly was the sort of what I've perceived in my body to be this like near-death experience. It wasn't. We have great hospitals, whatever. But it was a moment. It was a moment where I said, the gloves are off. Hello, world. I am here. I am going to see what I'm capable of earning.
Mm,
because I had never focused on that number before. I'm not someone who's sort of naturally motivated by
mm.
having a lot of money. And so numbers and money are not they're not where I focus. And I just was like, screw it, I'm going to see what I can do. Let's see what I am capable of. And all of a sudden, boom, out of the gate, my first $250,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Incredible. Yeah. Love it.
There's so much about this that has to do with allowing people to be different and allowing them, like I have
Why can we only connect apparently through similarity? Society
right.
shows often, unless we
Yeah.
understand, we can't connect. It's like, no, we need to
Yeah.
connect beyond
Yeah. Yeah. You've
just
got
through
it.
similar. You got to connect through difference. If not, it creates indifference. And now, go
Yeah,
ahead.
you got to embrace the other. There's
Mm,
just no, you've got to make space,
mm,
embrace when appropriate. You've got to, absolutely enjoy the differences. I have a friend who's an incredible businessman. He's just wonderful. He's a wonderful presence in my life, and but so completely different from me. Like his skills are in being this incisive, like really, um, you know, almost like to a point of being like a rebel. Vision of like, this is going to be productive, this is not, he's amazing in this way. We are so different, but one of the things that I most appreciated um uh recently was a conversation where he said, I I looked at this situation. I was like, well, what would Lee Noel do? And I just
mm.
kind of sat back and I let these people kind of say their piece. And all of a sudden, the whole thing turned around. It was really amazing, and it was just so sweet the way, there was that willingness to try it the way the other person does it, or
Mm,
see it through their eyes or whatever, or just evaluate, and I think if you can find your diamond
mhm.
and then get with people who will value it, I think.
I
and
love
and
that. Such
yeah.
a such a rich way. You said that so eloquently. I'm gonna probably butcher it. One thing that I'm just picking up as you're talking is, ladies, try this on. Why feel ashamed about your inner authority?
Or even men, why be concerned about your inner moments of intuition?
Right?
Men have plenty of them, right? And so it's like, if you are constantly at war with that part of you that is more sensitive and more feeling, like, you don't have to be. You can say, oh, you know what, I'm getting a hit here. This is a moment to sort of live in this other place. And one of the great things is that if I'm being more analytical about something and I have someone with a more masculine presence to whom I can go and say, you know what, I did a bunch of market research. Can you like look this over? Like I'm a designer. I'm not really a market research person. Can you look this over for me? That's great. And if someone, my builder says, this thing just really didn't feel right to me. What did you think? Right.
Hmm.
Then we're sharing in and bouncing off of each other's strengths. And I think that's what you want, is people who really value, can accept difference in them, those balances in themselves, and then also can really support and acknowledge and enjoy them in you.
The movie Braveheart, Mel Gibson modeled something, and I mean, there's different perspectives on all things. I'm not saying it was all fantastic. I will share though that I think, and men, think about, and ladies, think about, what did he model? The man considers it an honor when he can protect and fight for something. That's right. Fight for something. Fight for the authority that we all have. So when the
Yeah.
woman, for example, gets pregnant and there's an a lion chasing her, she'll probably fall sooner and she'll die earlier. The man considers it an honor that he gets to fight. The man considers it an honor that he gets to serve the feminine. The man gets to consider it an honor that he gets to be worthy, that when he activates the inside of himself, the inner side, the feminine inside of himself, when he gets to respect the feminine, not because she's some weak vessel. Oh my goodness, the opposite. She is powerful beyond, because when the emotion leaves the body is dead. Physically, the body is dead. So when the man finally comes to grips with it and doesn't feel threatened, his power activates, self-respect, everything that a human craves.
Well, I think in a lot of ways right now, and again, I say this from the point of view of someone raising a 16-year-old young man, it is a confusing time. People are looking at those roles and unsure where the value is. And I guess what I would just say is, wherever you land on whatever gray scale, like
Mm,
just always look for where you can show up and be worthy, and where people who are worthy of you are meeting you right there. And it's fine to make mistakes. I've made 1,000 million mistakes. Oh my goodness. Like there are things that have gone well
and
and things that have not gone well. It's fine. But always keep your heart in the right place. Like always just, really look for that ability to, lay your head on the pillow at the end of the day and say, well, I gave it my best. I always say at the end of the day, I spent what I had. I had this
mhm,
amount of energy and I
mhm,
spent it all.
mhm,
Like
mhm,
you just want to dive in and do that. I wonder, I know that a lot of your folks are looking for, I mean, you're the self-help hacker, right? Like you're
mm,
the person who says, like, let me
mm,
boil this down and help you understand it. And I just hope that they, can do what I'm doing now, and like catching up on all of your old episodes, because there's so many gems and jewels in all of them. And I think this idea that you can always be learning about
mm,
a way to do something that brings
mm,
you into better alignment. Like it's
mm,
always out there. Go find it.
mm. Well, you're so gracious, and thanks for saying it. And let's just say it like this: life to me was, I thought, great until I realized there's gray, and gray is great. Gray is not right or wrong. I have a son. His name is Harrison Gray Hepner, and when we can finally exit duality and be like, how can it all belong, and how is it all here to serve me? It's like, holy smokes, do you have a gasp of awe? It's like, wow, this is, we don't fight for us side. We fight so that we can all have a place, and an equal place. And I think it's just incredible. And so you've just been an absolute pleasure on the show.
Oh,
And I love,
thank you.
and I love, I think similarly, we can hear and how you presented yourself. You're not saying the men are the problem. You're saying
No.
we both are the gift if we understand and learn and utilize. I just want to encourage all the women and say, keep poking the structure. Keep poking the structure, because guess what? The structure, it needs to be poked. And so keep on with the courage. And you know what? By the way, it's going to get a little bumpy. And why
Yes,
is that?
there are
And
definitely
and
bumps.
and and honestly, why is a messy life not real life? Why is a messy life not good
Yeah,
life? Listen,
yeah,
real life, if you really want to know what's inside, if the women are just going, yeah, that's not a human being. There's different things going on. And so I was going to say this loosely, but my prayer would be that we could find such deep amazement and awe in what happens when we look at difference and be like, I am struggling to see how I can make this safe in my life, but I think I just need to now, and I want to, because, and for goodness knows, if you don't do it for other people, do it for yourself, because your
yeah.
life will be a living hell if you don't. Like, you're thinking you're experiencing joy, there's another level coming for you if you just tap in. And if you go to that edge, like you say, and I love that edge
Yes.
and how you live that edge, it's beautiful. Good
Yeah.
job.
Thanks you so
Yeah.
much. This was such a pleasure. And let's do it again.
Yeah. So where can people find you? Yes. Where can people find you?
So it's really easy. I have a website, Chase Design Services, all one word, .com. You can find me there. You can find me on Instagram easily. Feel free to message me there. It's at Lee Noel Chase. So at LeeNoelChase. Those are really the best ways. You can find my number, text me. I'm very, very reachable and available. I do a free consultation. And so just any of your listeners are welcome to call me and sign up for a virtual consultation. And I'll do that to talk about architecture and homes and residential architecture any day. And I think mostly, just send me a note, even if you think design project is in your distant future. Just, the more pre-planning you can put in, the better. So, call me early and often. It's better to start sooner rather than later.
That's so good. Thank you again for gracing us here on the show. And, just a beautiful, beneficial human you are. And it's an honor.
Oh,
I mean
thank
that.
you.
Beautiful, beneficial soul you are. And thank you for being who you are. So thank you.
Oh, you
And,
as well.
and we'll see you on the flip side.
All right. Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye. With inflation rates rising, interest rates shooting up, gas prices skyrocketing, and the continued global unrest, it's easy to find what's wrong in the world. Tony Robbins says, what's wrong in the world is always available, but so is what's right. Instead of trying to hope and wish the world into a better place, it's time to make the most important decision any of us can ever make, and that is to invest in yourself. Now, you already know that I've always stood with you as you've navigated the uncertainties of life's reality. However, it's now high time that I step up and take decisive action to walk alongside your current life journey by making myself available to you in a radically new way during these challenging times. For a limited time, I'm inviting you to a 45-minute strategic business life consultation at no charge and no strings attached. This consultation is where you'll regain the reins of your life. It's where you'll gain clarity on exactly why you're stuck, moving you directly towards your optimal outcomes. I'm humbled to say, however, my clients' generous reflection of their time spent with me reveals the truth. The skills they've been able to master in a short period of time by engaging in our one-on-one strategic sessions have changed their lives in so many ways. This is the only invitation that I can fathom that will put my skin in the game of your life in such a way that will allow us to address your specific needs with precision and excellence. 45 minutes, just you and I, together on a call to get you headed in the direction you crave most. Here's what my clients report after our one-on-one sessions. A decrease in indecision, an increase in clarity, confidence, and courage, an increase in fully being able to capitalize on what's directly in front of them, an increase in impact at work, on their families, and on their communities, a decrease in pain and suffering, and a decrease in anxiety. So, if you want to move beyond old stories, get clear on where you're headed so that you can shake your world, then here's a rich opportunity for you today. Simply go to www.jameshepner.com and stay on the page for about 45 seconds or so, and you'll see a little pop-up appear that will allow you to book in your business life consultation with me. This offer will expire and fill up. Maximizing this opportunity will set you up to reclaim and regain any of your inner power that has slowly been drawn down over these challenging times. And remember, if you want to stop the self-sabotage, raise your standards, and participate with unshakable confidence, you'll want to take the Maximize Your Life quiz found at www.jameshepner.com/quiz right now. My sincere hope is that you've gleaned a few nuggets for yourself and a few pieces of interest that help you move forward in your unique journey. So again, I thank you for joining me here. This is James Hepner clocking out. Until next time, peace out, rock up.